Well, welcome everybody to the YCARS presentation meeting for May. Sorry for the short notice again. It was unintentional. We just had a cancellation and I was trying to get somebody else in the slot. Couldn't get anybody else in the slot. So I took it. I had something that was getting ready to do anyways. It's kind of reprising something I did a couple of years ago. Since we have so many new people in the club and we've got so many new hams and so many new HF folks, and the sun cycle's coming up, I thought it might be a good thing to start talking about chasing DX, especially now that some of the DX expeditions are kicking back up with COVID restrictions relaxing. And after talking to Rolly last month and having a taste of what he does over in the Pacific, and I know he's gearing up to go to Niue Island here shortly, so hopefully we'll have a chance to talk to him once he gets to Niue, and we'll go from there. So I call this the chase, the contact, and the paper. So, and you'll kind of see why. Okay, so this is really geared to those getting started in chasing DX, or you may have a little bit of experience and not much success. So this is me. This basically is to try and help you understand the concepts and some of the tools you need to be able to be successful chasing DX. So it's based on my theory, my experience over the last 4 or 5 years, as well as some books I've read, and I've got some books with me here tonight. I'll share them with you, and I have them referenced in the presentation. So my experience right now, I've earned DXCC on mixed and phone. I'm working on CW. I'm very close. I'm down to, I think, 3 countries now that I need for DXCC CW. I have 3 bands out of the 5-band DXCC. I have 20, 40, 15 closed out. I have about 93 on 10, and I've got a long way to go on 80. I've got to get about 70 on 80, so I've got a long way to go there. Currently at 206 confirmed DXCC entities out of the 340. I've earned CQWPX. For those of you guys who aren't familiar with WPX, that is prefix counts. So different prefixes all over the world. I have the award for mixed phone digital, 2040 meters, North America, EU. So they have 1 for each continent and 1 for each band. I'm also on a roll. I've got 900 plus prefixes on phone and 1,000 prefixes plus on mixed. Since this year started, I've kept track of my DXCC confirmed contacts. So since January 1 to today, 145 confirmed contacts, DXCC entities. So that is DXCC in 5 months, basically. And I have 145 that I've worked and 101 confirmed, excuse me, 101 confirmed. So that is DXCC in 5 months. It's possible to do it. It just takes a little perseverance and some skill sets that you'll learn, and sometimes a little power. What is DX? So most of you are familiar with the concept. DX is shorthand for telegraph for distance. HF DX is typically defined as a different country. For the US, they typically don't really define Canada and Mexico as DX because it's still on the same continent. But I mean, if you want to call it DX Canada, it's a DX entity. So when you get Canada and Mexico in your log and they confirm, they're DX entities. So you get, that's 3 if you work US, Canada, and Mexico. So, and you know, Hawaii and Alaska are considered DX because they're off continent. Well, Alaska isn't, but you have a country separating it. DX is different for US operators than most places on the planet because we pretty much are most of North America as one big country. When you go over to Europe, those guys work DX every day, and it's very easy for them to get, you know, 50, 60, 70 countries because Europe, they're 40, 50 countries in Europe alone on itself. And when you add in the entities like San Marino and Andorra and Sicily and Crete, you know, you can get up there to 70, 80 pretty quickly. And they're not that far away from the Middle East, which is Asia. So you have a bunch of countries there too. And then you have right across the Med, you've got North Africa. So it's much more difficult for the US stations to work DXCC than it is for Europe or Asia, because there's so many more countries available to them. So just keep that in mind. Currently, there's 340 DXCC entities as defined by the ARRL, who defines those entities. There is some back channel stuff I'm hearing that they're going to address some of the DXCC entities that exist now, and they're going to retire them. And the reason to retire them is because, one, either they haven't been activated in such a long time, or they're impossible to activate now because they're underwater, or some of the situations where there's political unrest, i.e. they're talking about, you know, getting rid of North Korea, so the P5 designation. They're talking about getting rid of Syria is another one. There's a couple countries they're considering getting rid of because there's no physical way for people to go in and activate, or there's no active hams in those countries. Another one was, I think it's Scarborough Reef, which is basically at high tide or low tide, you can set up some poles and sit on a platform and operate. So anyways, there's a list that they're trying to get rid of. I got the email the other day and looked through it. I hadn't finished it yet. I hadn't digested it. So the biggest thing with DX is if you can't hear them, you can't work them, okay? So we all know the most important part of our station is the antenna, okay? So if you're gonna spend a lot of money, if you can put up a tower, you know, basically spend as much money as you can on your antenna. That's going to make a world of difference from you. Once you have the best antenna you can get, and everybody's situation is different. Your HOA, you know, you can't put up a tower. You may not be able to put up a tower. You know, you're going to be stuck with a wire. You're going to be loading up gutters, right? So that's the best antenna you can do. At that point in time, then you want to look at your receiver and make sure you've got the best receiver you can get. And then, you know, obviously, if you need to, there's power available, so you can start running power. You run into money there, but again, spend your money where you're going to get the most good out of it, and that's going to be your antenna. Okay. Again, considerations for HOAs and those kind of things. You may end up not spending money on antennas. You may be spending on an amplifier and better receivers. Okay. So I call antennas the gateway to the world. Okay. Because without the antenna, you're not really going to be hearing much unless you're just sitting there listening on an SDR over the internet. Basic antennas like off-center fed dipoles, fan dipoles, single band folded, G5RVs, any of those variants like that, you know, they're very easy to build. They're economical. They're efficient when you have a resonant frequency. So if you have a dipole for 20 meters and you've got it cut properly, it's going to be really efficient. And the higher up you get it, the better your radiation angles are going to be, your better receive you're going to have. So, you know, you can do a lot with 100 watts in a dipole. You really can. You know, there's people who have DXCC very quickly on 100 watts in a dipole, but they've got it up high and they understand how to work their radio. And conditions play a lot in this too, right? We're coming into the solar maximum of the sunspot cycle. We are ahead of schedule with the sunspot cycle. 25, which is the cycle we're in now, we were supposed to see a maximum of about 132 sunspots in the cycle, and we've been up almost 200 sunspots in the cycle. We've seen SFIs in the 160s and 170s and 180s, which is nowhere near where they predicted the sunspot cycle to be. It was supposed to be a lower cycle, as good or a little less than the last cycle. So predictors have missed this cycle, and we may see SFIs above 200 this cycle. So, and that means we're going to be talking on a wet noodle and 5 watts all over the globe. 10 meters will be wide open day and night. 6 meters will be wide open. It'll be a lot of fun if we get there. There have been a couple days in the past couple weeks where we've seen SFIs in the 180 range, and 10 meters. I was working stations at midnight across the globe. So keep in mind, you got to watch those conditions too. So we talked about dipoles and off-center feds. And the other one to look at that's real economical and easy to put together is the full wave loop. Now you can run these vertically or you can run them horizontally. I prefer running them horizontally because you get a lower radiation angle than you will with a vertical one. What you give up is you give up directivity. When you put that loop horizontally, you got a unidirectional antenna, okay? Also, when you put it up horizontally, you end up with a multi-banded antenna. If you start to hang them vertically, sometimes they don't like other bands. And you end up with basically a donut-shaped transmission property. And so where you have the hole in that center of that loop, you have a null there, okay? They are low cost, they are lightweight, but they're big, right? I have run an 80-meter loop at my house, and it is 251 feet of wire. So you've got to have a pretty good area to put that thing up. If you go to a 160-meter loop, you're at 500 and some odd feet of wire, 520, 521, 541, something like that. So it's a big antenna. They are very, very quiet. The loops are exceptionally quiet antennas. They don't pick up noise like other antennas do. Again, if you hang it horizontally, you get every harmonic, and it's very easy to tune some of the work bands. So if you build an 80-meter loop, 80 is going to tune fine for you, 40 will be fine, 20 will be fine, 15 will be fine, 10 will be fine, 6 is fine. 12 and 17, they come in pretty well. 30 is a little bit of a challenge on 80-meter loop. It'll come in, but you better have an off-board tuner or something that can tune something with a 5-to-1 SWR. 60 meters tunes okay too. What's that? You can run a pasture fence if you need to. So we'll talk about that. Then you have vertical antennas, and you all know I'm a fan of verticals, right? Even though I have that big loop at the house, I'm getting ready to put up a DX Commander 12.4 vertical. The big deal with verticals is they have a very low angle of radiation, okay? They get out DX better than most antennas unless you're running some big piece of aluminum strapped up in the sky. They are very low to the ground. They're very low to the ground DX takeoff angles. You put down a whole lot of radials, and that brings it down even closer to the ground. So you get those long, long DX contacts. The lower that angle is, when it bounces off the atmosphere, the farther it's going to go. And so instead of attenuating, needing 3 hops for something, you might only need a single hop, and you don't attenuate as much signal. The other thing with verticals, it's very easy to build arrays out of them, okay? So you can stick a couple verticals, one in the center with a very long line for a single band, and put a shorter one out front that's tuned, and you can move that thing around and have, by hand, and have very good propagation and high gain going in different directions. So, don't discount those verticals. And if you guys have been to our field day, that big monstrosity I bring out there, that 3-element 40-meter vertical array, and that thing gets us out 4 to 6 dB a gain. And that gain is also, reciprocal receive. So whatever direction that's pointing in, we've got 6 dB a gain on receive. Okay, so then we start talking about the money. Directional, rotatable, YAGIs, log periodics, those kind of things, cubical quads. They're very nice to have, but they cost a lot of money, and you better have some room. 40-foot tower plus a nice opti beam on top of it, a multi-banded kind of thing. You're probably looking $25,000 maybe by the time you have it all installed with the feed line. You might get away with a little bit less than that. You find a good used tower. So, but you're not going to find much better antennas than that unless you're working some crazy 4 squares or something like that on the ground. They're heavy. They require a rotating system, require a lot of maintenance. As you guys know, we've got fine antennas out here at the clubhouse, and they are great to use. So, why spend $25,000 on the tower when you could spend your 40 or 50 bucks to cost us to be part of this club and come in here and work on this stuff here that we've got, you know, unless you just don't want to drive over here. The other thing I would encourage you to explore, especially on the lower bands, 40, 80, 160, if you like to work with that, is receive antennas, okay? Now, K9EY, I think it is, has a very good receiving loop that's rotatable. Again, these are just receive antennas. You can put a small loop on the ground. There's been YouTube videos that show a 15 by 15 receive loop on the ground. You have to build a little bit of a balun for it. Depending on the wire you use and your soil conditions, it's typically a small 4-to-1 balun or 3-to-1 balun, and you run 50 ohm or 75 ohm coax back to your shack, and you have a small receive antenna, and you get a TR or TRX receive switch. If you've got a lower end radio that doesn't have multi-antenna ports, and you can flip between those two antennas so you have a receive. You can get out there if you've got a little bit of land, if you live on a farm, you know, run a beverage. You know, those are really good antennas. Beverage on the ground or a raised beverage. Now, if you have a lot of wildlife around, raised beverage can be problematic because the deer will get entangled in them and mess around with that stuff. But there's flag antennas, there's receive loops, all kinds of stuff. But explore receive antennas. That little 15 by 15 loop, I've seen enough videos on that thing to say, okay, I'm going to build one. I've just got to find a spot where I'm going to put it because you don't want it too close to your transmitting antennas. But they're really kind of cool antennas. So transceivers, okay, we spent money on antennas. Now we got to start talking about transceivers, okay? Now, you can get away with a good used transceiver. Like I said, 100 watts in a wire is very, very, you know, possible to work a lot of DX on, especially when conditions are good. But you want to make sure you've got a good receiver, right, that has good ears on it. You don't want something that, you know, you're not going to be able to pick up faint stations. You want good roofing filters in there, okay? So a lot of receivers have the ability to change roofing filters. And you can buy the filter and put that filter in, especially if you're working CW, you want that window to be as narrow as it can be. So, you know, a 300 hertz filter in there works really good for CW. Same thing if you have the ability, some of the receivers have the ability to put a 1800 or 1500 sideband filter in there. Now, what does that buy you? Well, in conditions when you're working contesting, that narrows that window down, keeps QRM down so you can hear the station that's coming into. You know, sensitivity is a big thing with them. So there's the Sherwood reports out there that you can go out and look at information about which receivers are out there right now. And they have good Sherwood reports, so they have good sensitivity. You know, top of the line, I think right now, the best one on the Sherwood reports, the FTDX 101. I think the Flex 6700 is number 2, and I think the FTDX 10 is number 3. So Yaesu and Flex seem to dominate that. The ICOMs are right there with them. You know, 4, 5, and 6, I think, are ICOMs. So, you know, check the Sherwood reports out. And again, you have to be within your budget, right? Whatever you can afford, get the best radio you can get. Now, if you can get something with dual receive on it, you know, great. That's going to help you a whole lot, because when you get into situations where the DX station is working split, we're going to talk a little more about that. You can actually put that frequency up on your second receiver and hear who he's calling, right? You can hear the pileup and you can hear the operator at the same time, which you can't typically do with a single receiver. You know, you might have 2 VFOs, but you're not receiving at the same time. But there's tricks to get around that, and I'm going to explain some of that to you. Of course, nice to have is built-in second receiver, pan adapters with spectrum scope. Most of the modern radios, if you're buying something that's within the last 5, 6 years, most of them have spectrum scopes on them. So you can kind of see what's going on the bands. Makes it easier to get to them. Yeah, you can, you know, if they've got HDMI or DVI out, you know, great. If you put it up on a monitor, it's even better. You know, most modern rigs have cat control. USB cat control in them. And so you can control them from your computer using Ham Radio Deluxe, not my favorite, but you can use Ham Radio Deluxe. You can use N1MM. You can use Win for Yaesu, Win for ICOM. There's tons of software out there to help you be more efficient in operating your radio. Nice gadgets to have. If you're going to be chasing DX, especially CW, a good set of headsets. You want to have something, even noise canceling is even better if you got a noisy environment in your shack, which hopefully you don't. But if you do, noise canceling headphones are going to help you a whole lot. Logging software becomes important because some of the logging software like N1MM, Ham Radio Deluxe, and a few others can let you put spots up on your screen. So you're not having to look, switching screens back and forth, control to this, to that, to find your spotting clusters, right? PAN adapters. If you don't have a modern radio that has a PAN adapter, go ahead and get yourself, an SDR play or an SDR, some kind of SDR, and you can get one of the little MFJ TXRX switches and put it in line. Or if you can get a tap on your IF out of your radio and feed that into the RSP play or into whatever SDR you're running, you can see the PAN adapter, right? So you can see what your radio is receiving. The key to that is if you run something like SDR Uno and you have OmniRig running in the background, you can unsync your SDR from your radio and use it as a second receiver. So you can put, the receive frequency you're listening to the DX station in one ear, and in the other ear, you could put your SDR from your computer. And guess what? Now you have, a second receiver in your radio. It's going to help you hear that pile, the other side of that pile up, and you can kind of figure out where they're calling, okay? There's also nifty manuals. And nifty manuals are really quite cool. There's one that's like, it'll give you all the quick reference guide for running your rigs, right? So if you're running, let's say an ICOM IC7300, you get a little book that looks like this, that's spiral bound, and it has all the information on quick settings of the radio and all the different, what everything does on the radio. So it's good to have one of those in case you forget how to operate the radio, or you get lost in what you're doing. They also make one called a DX Field Guide. It's a small little book. They're about 20 bucks. And what I like about this thing is, and one of the things I will encourage you to do is learn the prefixes for countries, okay? So if you see a spot and it says 3 Delta up front, well, that's Fiji. I need Fiji. Okay, great. So JY, okay, that's Jordan. Okay, great. I know I need Jordan. So if you know those prefixes, and you're not going to memorize them all because there's gobs of them. There's probably a couple hundred of them. But if you know some of them, and you know the ones you're looking for, makes it real easy to see them on the spotting clusters. I mean, if you need VP9, you need Bermuda. Okay, great. You can get it. VP6, Pitcairn Islands. So you can, if you learn those spotting or those prefixes, that'll help you quickly assess who's on the bands, and you can jump to them. So that works out real good. Receive audio processing. Some older rigs don't have really good audio processing for receive, so you can put, WIHY makes a really nice little parametric equalizer. If you remember the conversation we had with Bob Heil last year, he talked about developing a parametric equalizer on receive for Yaesu. He helped ICOM with theirs. He also has his little PRAS system that he sells that will clean up some of the background noise. And then, of course, it's always good to have your hands free. So a boom mic and a foot pedal or a headset with a foot pedal works out really good because you can work your radio with 2 hands and not have to worry about keying a microphone up, okay? So we talked about the radio, we talked about the antennas. Now we really need to talk about understanding propagation and where to look for the DX, what times of day to look for DX, you know, where to find information about DX. So the big thing with propagation is I can talk till I'm blue in the face about propagation, and about half of what I'm going to tell you is right, because nobody knows. It's kind of a little bit of a mystery, okay? I will tell you this. When you start to think about the F layer of the atmosphere, okay, and that's where we bounce our signals off of. When you start thinking about the F layer of the atmosphere, it's not a hard shell, right? It's not this solid, like we're inside of a ring, right? It's not that. It's a lot like cotton candy, okay? So certain areas, you know, you might get really good reflection, and, you know, the SFI could be 180, and you might have a soft zone right over the top of you where your signal's hitting and it's just kind of leaking out and not much of it's making back to the earth. Now, you could get a really good solid spot up there, and your signal's bouncing all the way around the earth, and you're going long path and short path at the same time. But think of it as cotton candy. It's not uniform. It's not a hard surface. It's kind of spongy, right? And sometimes it'll absorb, sometimes it'll let it leak through, sometimes it reflects it. So that, just keep that in mind when you're worrying about that. So do you guys understand the difference between long path and short path? So there's certain paths at certain times of the day where the short path, especially if you're using directional antennas, the short path is going to be the shortest distance, most direct distance to that DX entity. The long path is the opposite way around the world, okay? So if you're coming off and you've got somebody at 90 degrees due east of you, okay? So let's say you're beaming the Mediterranean from our QTH here at the clubhouse. That's almost due east, so that's 90 degrees. The long path is 180 degrees, so it's exact opposite of that. So sometimes during the day, the reflectivity, depending on where the sun's at, works better going the opposite way. So you have to understand that for propagation, right? You've got to understand that there's long paths and short paths. And sometimes you'll hear guys yelling, especially from Asia. They'll say, you know, beaming long path, okay? That means they're coming in a long way. And if you want to hear them properly, you need to turn your antenna opposite where they're at, okay? So for those who use omnidirectional antennas, you know, or dipoles, that really doesn't play into it. But if you're here at the clubhouse and you're working on the beams, if you hear somebody say long path, check your bearing on your antenna. You may turn it 180 degrees opposite and have a much better signal coming in. Working the gray line, okay? Working the gray line, it's interesting. You get some really spooky propagation with the gray line. And if you're not familiar with that, we'll talk a little deeper about it as we go forward. But the gray line is basically where the day-night terminator is. You've got, you know, about an hour on each side of that terminator when the sun goes down that provides enhanced, in most cases, enhanced propagation, okay? Understand the band plan, okay? A lot of people assume that the band plan for us here in the States is the same all the way around the world. It's not, okay? If you're trying to work European DX on 40 meters and you're looking for them up in the general portion of the band, you got about 25 KC, okay? They don't go above 7,200. So 7.20 is their cutoff for 40 meters over in Europe. So if you're a general, your cutoff is 7.178, stay in the band plan, because 7.175 is the hard edge of that band for a sideband. So just be aware of that. You know, that's why I say, you know, if you can get your extra, go get your extra, because that little extra portion of bandwidth that you get with the extra means a lot when you're chasing DX, okay? And then we'll talk about digital modes too and how you can use those to predict propagation. All right, so I went through a little bit of this. We have a D layer. We've got several layers in the atmosphere. The ones we're really concerned about are the D layer, the E layer, and the F layers, 1 and 2. So The D layer is the one that causes us problems. It's the one that likes to absorb RF, okay? So when the D layer gets really charged up, say we have a solar flare and we get a bunch of high energy X-rays that come in, it charges up the D layer to the point where it's reflecting everything, you know, or absorbing everything. So there's no propagation at that point in time. The E layer can be interesting because it comes and goes and it's like Swiss cheese, right? It's there, it's not there. And it'll reflect HF and medium frequency waves. And depending on how much reflectivity there is, 1,200 miles is possible. Sometimes you can get across the pond on 6 meters with E-skip or 10 meters E-skip. But it's going to be, you're not going to see E-skip with the longer bands, 20 meters, you know, that kind of thing, because their wavelengths are too long for it. It's kind of that sweet spot between 50 and 30 megahertz that you get the skip on E layer. And then of course you got the F layers, right? That's where majority of our propagation is. The F layer at night, it's not 2 separate layers any longer. It becomes 1 layer, right? And there's an F3 layer, and there's finding some things out now that we may get some propagation off of F3, but it's still, they're still looking at that. But your average skip on the F layer when it's really good propagation is about 2,500 miles, okay? All this is based on the solar conditions, right? So when we have good sunspots like we've had pretty much last month, those sunspots, on the outside of that sunspot, there's umbra, okay? And that umbra generates a lot of UV energy. And that UV energy is what charges up our atmosphere, X-rays and UV energy. So X-rays are kind of bad because when we get high concentration X-rays, it juices up the D layer and we get a lot of absorption. So just know that when we have more sunspots, the better off we are. So let's talk about the bands and what bands you want to use for what times of day. 160 is the top band. I don't have a whole lot of experience with 160. I don't have any really good antennas for it. You have to have some really long antennas. You know, if you're running, you know, verticals, you can coil load them to shorten them up a little bit, or you can run big dipoles. You know, but it's more of a wintertime band because the lower the frequency, the more atmospheric interference you get. Lightning strikes, static noises, those kind of things will affect 160. You can still run it during the summer. It's just not as easy to run 160 during summer as it is during the winter because you don't have as many thunderstorms in the northern hemisphere, that kind of thing. 80 meters, you can run that pretty much year round. Now, again, keep in mind, 80 meters is going to be a little bit noisy during the summer months, as 40 is too, just because you have atmospheric noise from, you know, static charges and it discharges and lightning and those kind of things. But 80 can be a lot of fun when it's there and you don't have the cranky old guys down there on their nets. So if you're a general, get into DX windows and you can work a lot of DX. That's my next, once I finish up 10, I'm really going to concentrate on 80 and try to work that 75, 80 meter sideband and CW to close out 80 meters for 5-band DXCC. 40 meters up until recently was my favorite band because the solar cycle was so low. 40 was the only way I can get good propagation and really chase DX. Between 20 and 40, that's most of my countries. 40 is called the workhorse band. Everybody works 40. You get into a contest weekend, everybody's on 40, right? Because you can get short propagation during the day, long propagation at night. It's got good potential for long distance carry. You can get some really good days where, you know, the SFI is down around 100 and, you know, you might get 3,000 miles on a skip on 40. It's a really good band to work. 20 meters, they call the crossroads of the world, right? Everybody's on 20 at some point in time. Everybody wants to work 20 meters. It's probably the easiest band to get DXCC on. The propagation is good. Springtime, summertime, fall, winter, all year round, day and night. It's always fairly good. Now, we've got a guest in here, and she's not too happy with Leroy in the radio room. But the thing about 20 is you got to have some sunspots for that, right? When the sunspots get down in the 60s, propagation on 20, or I'm sorry, the SFI gets down in the 60s, low 70s, 20 meters is a little bit of a struggle. And that's about as high of a band as you're going to be able to work. Up until recently, I really haven't had much experience with 30 meters. But 30 meters has both a little bit of 40 and a little bit of 20, and you would expect that because it's between the two of them. Unfortunately for you guys that are, ladies and gentlemen, that run sideband, you don't run 30 meters because it's strictly digital or it's CW. Now, I've worked some CW DX on 30 meters, and I got to tell you, it's fun. And I'm starting to enjoy 30 meters for the first time. And I'm still learning the propagation, but it's from what I've read, it's pretty much a combination between 20 and 30 meters. 17. Boy, I like 17. And up until the low end of the sunspot cycle, when I came in at 2016, and that was as we were heading down in a minimum. So we still had days where we'd have 115, 117 SFIs, and 17 was an absolute blast. I'd get up early on Saturday morning, set up the radio, and just go into Europe gangbusters on 100 watts. And Europe seems to like 17. There's a lot of people on it. So you can do a lot, and it's good in the day, and it's somewhat good in the evening, depending on the sunspot numbers. 15 is a lot of fun as well. It acts a lot like 20. A lot of South American countries run 15. Asia likes to run 15. So those would be the bands I'd be looking for South America and Asia on, is 15. Now Europe, there's some folks that run, in contest weekends, all the bands are busy. But if you're really interested in Asia and South America, look at 15. 10 meters, hey, I'm just finding out about 10 meters now. It's a good band, and talking to guys who have been around for a while, and understanding, what they talk about propagation. When 10's good, 10 is really good. You can talk around the world. And if you're an old CB'er, 11 meters is very similar to 10. So, skip all over the place on 11, it's just like 10. So I've been chasing DX on 10 for a year and a half now, as the sunspot cycle started to come in. And like I said, I've got 93 countries on 10. It's a lot of fun. And now that it's open at night, a lot of times you can get up in the middle of the night and hear stuff on 10 that, you don't have big pileups because nobody else is awake here in the US. So a lot of fun there. And then 6 meters, I don't know a whole lot about 6 meters. I've done very little. I think I've made maybe a handful of contacts on 6. But it really depends on sporadic E. So when the E layer gets charged up, and we're heading into 6 meter season right now. So Mark Tarpley, who's the state delegate for the ARRL, he really understands 6 and does a lot on 6. He's chasing what's called the Fred Fish Award. It is working all of the Maidenhead grid squares in the US on 6 meters. So he's chasing that right now, and he's got it down to about 70 grid squares. And, there's probably about 3,000 of them. Yeah, so he's really gotten it down. But 6 can be a lot of fun. My understanding is that I'm not the guy to talk to about 6, though. Although we have a great antenna here now, I just haven't been here when 6 has been open. Okay, so propagation prediction tools. Okay, the ARRL used to put out a really kind of cool graph and chart, and I had one in the presentation, and I went to update it, and I couldn't find it anymore on the ARRL site. So I don't know whether they quit doing it, but they direct you over to VOACAP, okay? And VOACAP was developed by the military, the DOD, for Voice of America. Okay. We used to have the shortwave Voice of America radio station. I think they still operate it. It's just not as prevalent as it once was. And they have a prediction tool. So you can use the map you see here, and I set my QTH as red. Where you want to talk to is the blue. And you can go out there and set that blue.
Oh, John, I just noticed you're not sharing.
Are you serious?
I just noticed that. I'm like, wait a second. Oh, crap. He's not sharing.
Well, what the heck? Okay, I'm sorry.
That's my bad. I should have noticed earlier. I'm just listening intently, and I'm like, wait a second. He's
most of the slides, I think, have been all verbiage. They've been mostly verbiage. So if you've been listening and looking at my ugly face for 14 minutes or 15, 30 minutes, I apologize. Propagation prediction tools. So vocap, you've got this map here. You set the red as your QTH and the blue as where you want to target. So, and then you can hit the predict and it'll pull the current settings for SFI. It'll pull the conditions, the current KP conditions, all of that. And it will go and make up a chart for you. What's going to be the most successful part of the day and what bands. It's really kind of cool piece of software. If you get a chance to go out there, it's vocap.com/HF. And you can go out there and play with this thing. And it takes a few minutes to get the hang of it, but once you do, it's really cool. It is a dynamite tool to have. So play around with that. And of course, we had a presentation on solar data. I won't get too deep in this because this can get you in the weeds. Just know the SFI number, when it's up, it's good for us for the most part. The higher that SFI number gets, though, when it starts to get 150, 160, 170, the bands 80 and 40 start to get really noisy, okay? So it does limit some propagation there on the lower bands, but it's great for the higher bands. The A and the key, the A index and the K index are the geomagnetic field stability. So when those KP indexes or the A indexes are high, it means we've got geomagnetic storm conditions going on possibly, or mild disturbances, and that'll play havoc with the HF bands. Sunspot number is directly correlated to the SFI. X-ray flux. Okay, so X-ray flux, that's talking about flaring, okay, on the surface of the sun. So if we start seeing some C's and M-style flarings, X-ray flux gets up there high, it gives us radio blackout conditions. So, and if we see X-type flares, you're going to see longer duration blackouts. And basically, that's only the sun-facing side of the Earth. So you'll get these spots. If you go out to the Space Weather Prediction Center from NOAA, it's swpc.noaa. They have a very good explanation of this stuff, and they've got a dashboard out there that's absolutely wonderful. It's called Radios, and you go out and hit that dashboard, and it'll show you the current flaring conditions for the last 12 hours. And it'll tell you what kind of conditions we have. If we have a geomagnetic storm, we've got polar issues, because when you get a lot of proton flux or you get a lot of X-ray flux, CME comes in and hits the Earth, the polar regions will get inundated and you'll have radio blackout just over the polar regions, North and South Pole. So just be aware of that. When those numbers are up and you see we have a polar storm or an electron storm or a proton storm, just know going across the poles to get anywhere is probably not going to be good. So, going anywhere from, heading of 345 degrees to about 45 degrees, propagation is going to suck. And same thing going down south. The beacon network. A lot of people aren't aware of the beacon network. There are beacons out there for 20 meters, 17 meters, 15 meters, 12 meters, and 10 meters, and they're all over the globe, okay? And there's a site that'll give you the beacons, and they ping in CW, but you can watch the beacon, and even if you don't know CW, you can watch the beacon network when it lights up on the screen. Let's see if I got it. Yeah, so that's what the screen looks like. When it lights up on the screen, you know that beacon is active. And if you can hear it with your antenna and your radio and you're hearing the CW, the first one comes out at 100 watts, the next one comes out at 10 watts, 1 watt, and then I think the fourth one comes out at like 1/10 of a watt. Let's back that up. Yeah, first one's at 100 watts, then 10 watts, then 1 watts, and then 100 milliwatts. So you can hear the propagation. So if you hear them good at 100 watts, then you know that you probably can hear a lot of stations coming from that part of the world, okay? And they cycle through. So when one's on 20 meters, the next time it broadcasts will be on 17, then it'll be on 15, then it'll be on 12, then a 10, and it cycles back around, okay? So the beacon network's really cool. I think I've got the, yeah, it's ncdfx.org/beacon is the website for the beacons. And you'll get this map, and it tells you how to listen for the beacons and who's active. Azimuthal maps. There is a great application for free azimuthal maps. Here's the URL for it, right? And you punch in your grid square or your longe and lat coordinates, and you tell it to calculate it. And what it gives you is a projection with you in the center of the map. So you know the bearing to each of the continents on Earth and the countries you're looking for, so you can figure out, like, if you really think about it, a lot of people think due east is Europe. It ain't. Europe's about 30 degrees. It's almost north of us. Well, it is north of us, but it's a lot further north than people realize. You know, when we were in Scotland back about 5 years ago, I was on the same parallel as Alaska. I'm trying to think of the name of the town, Fairbanks, Alaska. So you don't think about being in northern Scotland. And I wasn't that far up. I was like in Inverness, and it was the same latitude as you would be in Fairbanks, Alaska. Yeah, yeah. London's, you know, around Maine, somewhere there. So just, you have to think about the world differently. It's not a big flat map like we see a lot of projected. A lot of times you got to look over into these projections. So like Australia, everybody thinks, oh, Australia's south. No, Australia is freaking due west, right? Australia is due freaking west. And why we have so much trouble going to China and India for a lot of low power stations is you got to go right over the pole. They're almost due north of us. So just keep that in mind. It wouldn't hurt to have one of these azimuthal maps in your shack, even if you're not running beam antennas, just to know where people are at on the map, okay? Working the gray lines, spooky propagation, as I called it. The gray line will enhance things, and there's plenty of tools that can help you find it. The geochron clock is really good to find gray line. DX Atlas, which is a free piece of software that you can download, helps you out a whole lot. And it's got some other neat features. It's got the UTC clock. You can plug in a link to your current QRZ or your logging software, some of the logging softwares, and it'll put up all of your contacts, the last 100 or so contacts, so you can see where your contacts are at. There's the ham clock, which we have here in the shack, and I know we've built a few of those. That's a really kind of good tool for propagation. Not only does it give you the gray line, but it gives you the SFI, it gives you the KP index, it gives you a picture of the sun, it gives you alerts if we have solar flares. It shows you the beacon network too, if you set it up properly, right? So it is a good PI project, and I would encourage you to look at that. Now, you know, Geochron, seeing the writing on the wall, has given us that layer as well. They have a lot of layers, but you have to pay for that layer. It's like $60 a year or something. So, you know, nothing wrong with it, but, you know, it's just in what you want it to look like. Geochron, in my opinion, is a little nicer looking than a ham clock, but nothing wrong with either one of them. All right. We talked about the band plan, right? Understanding the band plan. And for those of you who are generals and you're chasing DX, go get your extra. You will get there a lot quicker with your extra, or learn CW. Either way. you learn CW, you can go down there and work all kinds of DX at CW because they're on there every day. I'm learning that myself. And I figured if I wanted to get past 250 countries, I better learn CW. So I have picked up more countries in the past 2 months, 3 months since I've been playing around with CW than I did for the past 2 years. So, but that's an important thing. Digital modes, you talked about that. Prediction using FT8, Whisper, those kind of things. You can run and look at PSK Reporter, and it'll tell you where your signal is getting out, where you're being heard. So that'll help you. If you run it for, you know, say one Saturday afternoon, you kind of know what the conditions look like. You kind of know where you're being heard on different bands in the afternoon. And then you can run it in the evening and see what bands you're hearing being heard on in the evening, right? Or you can run Whisper for 24 hours and see what 24 hours on a certain band looks for you, okay? Now, again, it's dependent upon conditions, but still, you can learn a lot. Also, very important to know where to find it. DX clusters, DX newsletters, and of course, the best way to get DX quickly to get them. Now, not all contest stations will give you confirmations, but you can work a lot in a weekend. I have worked over 100 countries in one weekend during a contest, and I've had up to 80 confirmed. Now, it's the same folks that I'm usually hearing. France, a lot of EU, some Japanese, South America, but you can work 80 countries and have them confirmed very easily in a weekend. Okay, on a big contest. The IRU this weekend we've got CQWPX CW, the ARL DX contest. In the fall we have CQ Worldwide. That's another one to work. Sweepstakes is another one to work to get to start working those contests. There are a bunch of newsletters out there. If you do a Google for DX newsletters, you will find a crap load of them out there. People who, you know, are either going on DX and letting people know, or they're big DX expeditions like the Bouvet Island DX expedition. They're trying to get off the ground. They're hoping to be going in the springtime coming up when it's summer down in the South Atlantic. You know, they have their own websites. The DX clusters, you know, I like DX Heat. It's easy to go in there and pick what bands you want to look at, what areas of the world you want to look at for DX. So if you're keying on Asia, okay, I want to only see what I'm seeing out of Asia, right?
John?
Yes.
Question while you're on DX Heat.
Yeah.
The band activity map that they have, what's the time stamp on that? You know,
it's pretty real time. It's not always real time.
Okay.
And you've got to make sure you have it set right, right? You want to make sure you set your location as North America. Now, again, that's all of North America. So the West Coast may be hearing, you know, Asia and the South Pacific better than we are here on the East Coast. So it may be red on Oceania.
Okay, they don't have it fine tuned, so you can pick.
No.
Okay.
It's basically continent wide.
Okay.
So you kind of have to play around with it. What I look at when I'm looking at the spots, especially, I typically leave North America out as DX entities because I've pretty much worked everything in North America. The only time I'm looking at that now is for CW for worked all states. But what I do is I look to see who the spotting station is, right? If I'm seeing 4s and 5s and 8s and 7s, or I'm sorry, 8s, 3s, 4s, and 5s are spotting these guys, then I know I can probably hear them. Now, if it's a bunch of 6s and 7s spotting them, or a bunch of 1s spotting them, sometimes 1 doesn't have we don't have the same propagation as 1 because they're so far up north. But 6s and 7s and even 0s to some extent, I don't bother looking for those because I know I'm probably not going to hear them. Okay, so that's one of the keys is you got to look for the people around you that are hearing. Okay, say you could, W3 LPL is one of the big spots on this, and I think they get a lot of their feeds from that. But he's got SDRs all over the place, so you have to be careful. Read the comments because it may say, heard in Missouri or heard in California or heard in Florida or heard in Maryland. You know, if he's hearing you in Maryland, then chances are you're probably gonna hear him. But if he's hearing him in Maine, good luck. You know, you may or may not hear him. So now that you found the DX, you're ready to work them. I will stress this probably more times than necessary. Listen, 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 listen. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth, okay? Listen to what's going on in that pileup, okay? Make sure you can copy the guy. Don't be that operator that just calls into a middle of a pileup. You get lucky, he hears you, and you go, what's your call sign? Nothing burns people up more than that, okay? That is just rude, right? You have no business calling a guy unless you know what his call sign is. Spotting clusters have made that really awful because people will call into a pileup. They know he's spotted. They can hear, and they call into the damn pileup, and they lid the top of the pileup, and the guy will call him back sometimes, and they have no clue the guy's calling back, and the guy's going, you know, 4 Zulu, 4 Zulu, 4 Zulu, and I can't hear him. And so now he's slowed down the whole pileup. You've ruined it for a lot of people. He may have missed opportunities for people. Brevity is important when you're talking to a DX station. Listen to what he's saying. If he's having an exchange back over a couple times, great, then you're fine to do that. Tell him your name or whatever you want to tell him. But if he's going 599 thank you, right, or 59 thank you, give him 59 thank you, 73 and get out, right? Don't sit there and tell him what you're running. He doesn't care. He's logging contacts. I know it's important to you and you feel like you need to tell people, but geez, oh Pete's, please listen to what's going on and be as brief as you can because people are trying to make as many contacts as can, especially the expeditions. You know, they're trying to make 30, 40, 50,000 contacts, especially if they're lighting up something that's really rare, okay? Bouvet Island is going to be one of those. Their goal is 250,000 contacts, right? And if every Tom, Dick, and Harry wants to get in there and explain to them what their station is and what their coax is and what mic they're running, those guys ain't going to get 250,000 contacts. They're lighting up an entity that hasn't been lit up in 30 years, right? There was a guy in India that lit up an island that was number 4 on the list. I tried to work him. I could never get a really good copy on him. So I sat back and listened a whole hell of a lot. And the one time I did get a good copy, I went to them and they didn't hear me. But there were guys that were ruining that way up. I mean, the guy who was running the pileup didn't have any control over it. And it was a cluster. Let's just put it that way. Know how to work your radio. Okay. Especially when the DX station is running split. If you don't know what split means, go look it up or don't try to call that guy, okay? He's listening on one frequency and he's transmitting on another, right? Don't be that operator that doesn't realize he's working split. And you'll hear it because he's going to say, if it's sideband, he's going to say, this is NJ4Z 5 up, right? That 5 up means he's listening 5 KCs up, right? So if you call him on the frequency you're listening to him to, all you're going to do is piss off everybody who's trying to listen because you're talking over the guy that's calling, right? They're trying to hear the DX station and all they're hearing is your freaking call sign. And you want to make friends fast? Do that a few times into a big pileup. The band police will show up with handcuffs, right? You will get, he's working split, he's working split, he's working. It just makes a whole mess of the pileup. CW, he's going to be 1 to 2, 1 up, 2 up, whatever. Or he'll just say up. Most people who are experienced CW operators know that if it just says up, he's working 1 up. Some of these guys will work split on a wide range. They'll work 5 to 10 up. Okay? That means they're listening 5 to 10 up. That's when that second receiver becomes very important. Because chances are what he's doing is he's going up a half KC every time. So he's listening 5 up, then he's listening to 55, then he's looking at 6, then he's looking at 65, then he's looking at 7, he's looking at 7.5. all the way up to 10, and then he starts back down, right? And if you can hear the guy he's calling, and he's at 65, you know to jump to 7, right? And make your call on 7. So just pay attention to that. That's part of knowing how to work your radio. The other thing is, before you start chasing DX, go through your system. Make sure your noise floor is as low as you can get it, because some of these stations are going to come in really, really weak to you. Now, you're going to give them a 5.9, I don't care. But they're going to come in really weak, and you have to have a good noise floor to be able to hear these guys. You can't work them if you can't hear them, okay? Know your phonetics. Don't go at them with crazy phonetics. Here comes Texas, HCT. Don't do that. Hotel Charlie Tango, okay? Or if you must, Hotel Canada, Tokyo, okay? Those are recognized phonetics. But if you come at them with some crazy stuff that you've made up, like my call sign, no joy for zombies, okay? Nobody's going to know even what you're talking about. Use the proper phonetics. They're not that hard. Know your Q codes, right? Especially in CW, okay? Know the prefixes, right? That helps out a whole lot when you're hunting DX. There's a great little book called The Nifty Guide to Ventures in DXing. A lot of the information I'm giving to you came out of that book. It is a fantastic one afternoon read. You will gain a ton of more knowledge than I'm giving you here out of this book, okay? Just look them up on Google. They're all there. Just put in CWQ codes and you will get the whole list. Learn to work split correctly. Learn to use your RF gain. If you're operating in a pileup and you're not riding that RF gain, you're not doing it right, right? You want to be able to hear that station, you're going to be on that RF gain. You're going to be pumping it up or pumping it down. And if they're working simplex, you're really going to be on it because you're trying to eliminate some of the QRM, okay? Learn your DSP features, right? Learn how to use your notches so that if you're in a contest and you're trying to work a DX station, you can knock down offending QRM either side. Use your digital noise reduction. Working split. Now, this is an interesting thing. Almost every radio has this on it. You'll see it listed on the radio as RIT and RIT and XIT, right? Or on the YAGI radios, it's called clarifier. It's a really neat thing. If you don't want to put your radio in split, you can hit the TX clarifier or the XIT, and you can adjust that up. For CW, it's real easy. You know, you can go off frequency, and most radios will let you go up to 5 kc on that. So you don't have to put your radio in split. You can run simplex and just use your X or your clarifier, TX clarifier, and run it up, okay? That's another way to achieve the same goal as running split, right? Because sometimes radios are a little complicated to get into split mode, okay? Use your bandwidth and your shift controls, all right? PBT on ICOM radios, shift on YAGI radios, allows you to move your window around, your receive window. Your transmit frequency stays the same. Your receive window moves around, okay? Plus or minus hertz. Bandwidth is how much of that you're receiving. So if you've got a really noisy band, you got guys on either side of you and you're trying to hear this guy in the center, you can narrow down from 2700 down to 1800 or 1500 if your radio will let you do it. And that takes away the offending stations on either side of you, basically using your roofing filters, okay? And learn to use your band scope, right? You can see a lot of times if the signal's there or not before you even go chase that DX. Now, we'll encourage you, some of the older radios with band scopes, their sensitivity for the band scope is not really good. You might go to them and you might hear that signal and there's nothing there, right? I call those ghost signals. They don't show up on the band scope, but they're there, okay? But that noise level becomes very, very important because when you have your noise floor low, the guys that are coming in with zero signal, you'll be able to hear them. Okay. What's that? Yeah, the waterfall is important. Again, ghost signals, you may hear them, but they're not on the waterfall. Depends on the sensitivity of your waterfall. RF gain plays a little bit into that too. And so do your preamps. Know how to use your preamps, right? Here's your most common phonetics, right? If you use these, you're going to be in good shape. You start using some off-brand generic phonetics, and you're going to make a lot of friends in a pilot real freaking quick, because the DX guy's going to be calling you and asking you, what'd you say? What'd you say? What'd you say? What'd you say? You know, don't do it. Don't be that guy. All right, there we talked about the CQ zones, the ITU zones, prefixes. You know, again, that's a great reference. DX code of conduct. Okay, I'm not going to go through all of these. I just went through a lot of them when I was talking about being proper. Okay, please use good etiquette when you are working DX stations. Don't be the lid. Don't be the guy calling no to call sign. Don't be the guy trying to get in there and can't copy the guy, right? Don't be the guy that goes, the DX station goes QRZ and you go, NJ4Z, 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 NJ4Z. Don't do that, because he's already probably picked out somebody, and the station he's calling is probably trying to hear him over your blabbering mouth. Throw your call sign out there once or twice. If it's a long call sign, do it once. If it's a short call sign, you can maybe get it twice, but don't do it any more than twice. Okay? Really, it's just rude. Okay? The other thing I will tell you, and what burns my ass a lot of times when sitting there listening to radio, poor operation, is guys who have talked to that DX station on 20 meters. Excuse me. You'll call and you'll hear the guy. He'll come back to him and he goes, you're in the log. And the guy goes, yeah, I talked to you last night on 20 meters. Well, if you've worked the guy on 20 meters already, unless you're like his best buddy, why the hell are you calling him 24 hours later on that same band? Now, if he's on 15, different animal, right? Great, because now you have that country for your 5-band DXCC or 15 DXCC, whatever you want to run. But don't be the guy who calls the same DX station every freaking night, because you're probably taking an opportunity away from somebody else who has maybe less of a station or is in a different part of the country where the propagation is good that night and he can hear the guy, and maybe only for a short period of time, right? I've had guys that done that, and it just absolutely gets me upset, because that guy will fade away, and I'm like, I didn't get a chance to work him, because 2 or 3 of those guys took those opportunities. Now, I'm not saying I would guarantee I'd work them, but there was 2 or 3 more chances I may have had, okay? So, you know, be cognizant of the DX code of conduct. Be a good operator, be a courteous operator, be brief, and know what you're doing, right? You don't want to be the guy that gets called down in the middle of the hour, because it just makes it low power stations with compromised antennas, brutal. The only thing I can tell you, be persistent. If you want that country, it might take you an hour, but there's going to be a point in time where you're going to find that guy possibly. Okay? Listen what he's doing, right? If you can hear that, if they're working split and you can hear that second frequency, man, that's like a pot of gold, because you can figure out what he's doing, right? Even in a simplex pile up, a lot of times you can hear what he's doing. He's picking off tail enders, he's picking off the first one, he's picking up the strong signals. Listen before you call, okay? Figure out what he's doing. It'll be a lot easier at DX. If you're having trouble breaking through very call cadence, okay? If you've got a short call like mine, drag it sometimes. November Juliet 40, November Japan 40.
Hey, John.
40,
John,
yes.
Your audio is going in and out. It seems to happen every time you go to the left a little bit.
Okay.
Or my right.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. So vary your cadence a little bit. So like my call sign's pretty short. So if I say NJ4Z or November Juliet 4 Zulu or November Japan 4 Zulu, I may not be in a clear spot, but I may drag it a little bit. So I may go November Japan 4 Zulu, right? Just to give me, maybe I get a space in between two other, and he may hear the 4 Zulu and come back to me 4 Zulu, or I may hear the November Japan and I'm covered up the rest of the way, okay? So try varying your cadence a little bit. Maybe it's speed it up, maybe it's slow it down. It just depends on your call sign. If you got a really long call sign, you know, you may not want to slow it down too much. Tune off frequency a little bit, especially in a simplex pileup. Okay, try going down or up to increase the pitch of your voice. Okay, it's easier to hear higher pitches in a pileup than it is lower pitches. So if you can tune your radio so that your voice is, if you get off frequency a little bit, your voice goes higher, there's a chance he may hear you over somebody else. Okay. Now don't go too far, 10 hertz, 15, 20 hertz. Okay. You start getting out 50, 60 hertz, he's not going to understand what you're saying. Okay. You're going to be garbled, coming in understand it. All right. Don't do that. Again, sometimes you can change your phonetics. I've noticed the way I say November Juliet, I don't know how it happens, but I get a lot of November 2s coming back to me. And for a while, it really confused me until I had somebody come back and say November 2-4 Zulu. And I said, he's calling me. And I went back to him and he said, yeah, that's you, November Juliet. Okay. So I changed mine. A lot of times if you hear me calling, I use Japan now, right? Because it's more distinctive of Juliet, the way I express it, the way I enunciate it, okay? You may find that in yours, kilo sometimes gets confused, so kilowatt might be a good one. Of course, that lengthens your call a little bit, right? So be aware of what people are coming back to you with, and sometimes that'll help you, okay? And at least it may speed up the contact. Working split. I was just telling you guys about this. Don't hang out. If he says 5 to 10, don't hang out at 5. 70% of the people are sitting there at 5 kc above, and they're all just running into each other. It's a cacophony, and the guy's going to move up a little bit to see if he can hear anybody else, right? 50% of the people to 75% of the people are going to be sitting on that 5. 15 to 20% are going to be sitting over here on 10. And that whole area in the middle, there ain't nobody there. There are very little people calling there, right? So set yourself up at 7 kc and see if you get him the first or second time, right? If you've got the second receiver, you know where he's going to be calling or possibly calling, And a lot of times the spotting cluster, some guys are pretty clever. They'll say QSX 6.8, right? If you see that in the notes, that means he got that guy 6.8 up from where he was at. Right? So that helps a lot. If you know where he's going to be calling, then go there, right? That takes you to the front of the line instead of being in that cacophony of people at 5 and the cacophony of people at 10. You may only have 4 or 5 stations competing with you at 7 or 6, maybe more than that, but it's going to give you a better chance than sitting in there with everybody else. Find a place to be heard. That's the thing. And persistence, I talked about that, okay? Persistence, persistence, persistence. If you want that DX entity, stay with them until you can't hear them anymore. You may get hoarse, that's a good time to use the recorder in your radio if you got a modern radio, a 7300 or a 10 or something that can record your voice, and you can just send your call sign and send your call sign and send your call sign. Saves your voice, right? And when he comes back to you, then you just go to the microphone or you go to the key, whatever, okay? But persistence is going to be the key. So if you're trying to get Senegal, or like I was trying to get for 2 weeks, I've been trying to work Jordan, right? I would stay on SOP until he would fade away, and I'd be like, damn, I missed him. Okay, I'll find him again. You can get frustrated and get mad and walk away from the radio, but you know what? You still haven't made the contact. Calm down, relax, be persistent. Work them till you can't hear them, right? And you never know, that last call may be the one to get you there, right? Have a glass of scotch sitting there too. The important thing is if you're chasing paper, is getting that contact log, right? QRZ, EQSL. But if you're chasing paper, it's really Logbook of the World and QRZ. They're the ones who give out paper awards, okay? That nice stuff you see on the wall, DXCC certificates, Those things are great. The one I'm chasing that is driving me nuts right now is worked all zones, right? There are 40 CQ zones. I have 39 worked. I've got contacts in that last zone I need, but I can't get them to confirm. It's Sudan. I've got 3 into Sudan, and I've got 3 into Egypt. And the guy in Egypt won't confirm via Logbook of the World. You have to send him a card. And he wants $4.50 to send a card back. So I'm at the point now where I'm like, screw it, I'm sending him a card. I want the card so I can take it to the ARL booth, get it checked, and then I'm gonna send it in the ARL up in Connecticut and say, here's my 40th zone. Give me my freaking piece of paper because I won't work all zones. Okay. I'm hoping the club in Sudan will eventually confirm it. I won't have to send a guy in the Russian in Egypt for $4.50, but that's just me. I'm cheap. So you can do it through the bureaus too. You can hard QSL. Those are fun. I mean, I got a pack the other day from the bureau. I forgot I had sent them postage. So the bureau each country has their own bureau, and people send QSL cards in bulk to the bureau, and they get separated and sent out. Well, I got an envelope the other day, and the funny thing was they were all contacts from like 2017, 2018. They were my old call sign KE4PLT. I got one from Samoa, and I don't remember working the darn guy. It was a 5W, and I'm like, oh, this is cool, right? And I turn it over, and I'm like, oh, it's from 2017, but I still got it. So, that's cool. But he wanted me to send him a QSL card back, so I filled one out, and I got to put international postage. I'm not sending it to a bureau. I'm just going to go ahead and send it directly to the guy. And then you've got the DXCC awards. There's 16 DXCC awards that you can earn. Each of the bands, each of the modes. There's the 5 band, there's the 10 band, so there's plenty of opportunity to earn those. There's the challenge, which is 1,000 entities, right? So between the bands, if you work 1,000 entities, you get this really nice plaque. There's honor roll, which is 10% of, you got 90% of all the countries. So it's like 330 now. If you get 329, 330, you get a nice plaque. You pay for it, but you get a nice plaque that is, honor roll. And then there's #1 top honor roll, which means you work all 340, right? But with North Korea and Syria on there right now and Scarborough Reef, chances of you getting somebody who hasn't worked them in the past, getting 340 is near impossible, right? And that's kind of why they're considering making some changes to it. Then you got WPX awards, which I've won some of those. Those are for prefixes. There's specific rules for that. And then, of course, the dreaded work all zones that I'm chasing right now. And that's it. So do I have any questions? Any questions from the crowd?
Yeah, John, it's Harry. I got one for you.
Hang on one second, Andy. What's that? I'll get a bigger room. Somebody asked, what are we going to do if I run out of wall for hanging awards? I says, I'm going to get a bigger room. Go ahead, Andy.
All right. Yeah. Hey, I had a couple questions. You talked about full wave loop there. How high off the ground?
So loops are really funny. You can work them. Of course, it's band dependent, but the angle of radiation off a horizontal loop, even 6 or 10 feet off the ground, is pretty good. It's not as good on the low bands like 40 and 80, but 20 and 15 will work okay. I have mine at about 40 feet, and they say optimal for a band for an 80-meter loop is somewhere between 35 and 50 feet. Now, keep in mind, the higher that antenna is, the longer you have to make it, because when you're lower to the ground, you have ground coupling and capacitance added to that antenna. So the antenna will act longer the closer it is to the ground, and the higher up it is, it gets shorter. So when you kind of cut it for resonance, make sure you kind of know where you're at and test it low and test it high and figure out where you're going to hang it, and then of course tune it for what you want it for. Okay.
And then the DX bureaus that you talked about. Now you're saying each country has a DX bureau?
Yeah, they do.
Or is there one centralized?
Yep. Yeah, and I'll bring that up, Andre. Thank you. If you go to the ARL and you look up, I forget what section it is, but if you just put in bureau in the search key, it'll tell you how to, which bureau. We're the Sterling because you're in Zero Land. So I don't know who your bureau group is. We have the Sterling Club in Virginia, handles Area 4. So there's a group that's Area 5, and then there's individuals within them that handle, prefixes and suffixes. So there's the guy that handles my call is in Asheville. There's a guy that's in Charlotte. I see him all the time at the Charlotte DX Club. They have he handles part of it, so he's always handing out QSL cards because those guys all have big antenna farms. But yeah, just go out and look at bureau. Andre made a point. If you're in a CW pileup, do not zero beat that operator. If zero beat means you are sending on the same frequency he is, right? Go a few cycles off, 50, 60, 70 hertz. If he's not working split, it's simplex. Go off his frequency a little bit so that he can hear you, because if everybody zero beats the guy, and some of these guys put a filter on their zero beats, and they're not going to hear you anyways, right? They put their notch filter on the one they're sending, so they're not going to hear you anyways. Go off a little bit, plus or minus. I tend to go high, I tend to go plus. Usually somewhere between 50 and 60 hertz is enough. If they're working split, then I usually go, right at 1,000 or 990 or 110. So, Andre, did that get what we were looking for that? Yeah, Steve Chakowski cued me into that because he when he works POTA pileups on CW, he puts his filter on the zero beat so he won't hear you. Put his notch there. So, anybody else have questions? Was this valuable to you guys? Oh, wait a minute, Brian. Right. Yeah. Yeah, if you have that second receiver, try to listen to him. Yeah, absolutely. Keep moving around. You need to find a place where you can be heard. So moving around doesn't hurt you at all, unless you were at the spot you get coming to next and you miss them. But that's luck of the draw there. Anybody else have a question?
John, it's Harry. You mentioned simplex earlier. Does that mean non-split?
So yeah, it's non-split. So if you're working simplex, like tonight, I worked station in Jordan. He was working on 14.168, and he was taking calls on 14.168. So he was transmitting and receiving on the same frequency. That's simplex.
Got it. Thanks.
Yep. Anybody else? Everybody get something out of this? Okay, good.
Good job, John.
Thank you, Walt. And again, I really do apologize about the short notice. I tried not to do that. I tried to give you guys at least a couple weeks notice, but didn't work out for this week. But anyways, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. If you have any questions you think about, after this, or you don't want to ask it in the forum, just send me an email. I'll be glad to see if I can answer it. I don't have all the answers, but I try to do my best to give you guys the information I have. All right. With that, I will say 73. Everybody have a good evening, and we'll catch you next month.
Okay. Thank you, John.
Appreciate your time, sir.
73, thank you.
Yep. Don't forget, there's a big contest this weekend. WPX, CW.
Thank you, John.
Yep.